Within minutes, the files were being downloaded thousands of times. Reddit threads appeared. Twitter was flooded with hashtags. Hashtag Hell's Angels Conspiracy, hashtag Genetic Warfare, hashtag Secret Army. Sarah watched the metrics on her screen. 10,000 downloads. 20,000. 50,000. The numbers climbed exponentially. News aggregators picked up the story. Independent journalists started analyzing the documents. Conspiracy theorists amplified everything. The signal was getting lost in noise, but it was out there. Spreading. Metastasizing. At 12:23 a.m., the first mainstream media outlet acknowledged it. A tech reporter from The Guardian tweeted, "Massive document dump allegedly exposing Hell's Angels connection to International Genetic Research Program. Reviewing files now. If authentic, this is unprecedented." At 12:45 a.m., a CNN breaking news alert. Unverified documents surface online claiming secret military genetic modification program. White House has no comment. At 1:17 a.m., the backlash began. Twitter accounts started getting suspended. Reddit threads disappeared. Facebook removed posts for violating community standards. YouTube videos were taken down for dangerous misinformation. "They're fighting back," Petra said, watching her own uploads disappear in real time. "They're using content moderation policies to suppress everything." But it was too late. The files had already spread too far. People had downloaded copies, created mirrors, uploaded to decentralized platforms that couldn't be censored. The information had achieved critical mass. At 2:03 a.m., something unexpected happened. A video appeared on YouTube. Professionally produced. High-quality graphics. A distorted voice narrating over images of the Rothberg Institute. For 70 years, you've been told a story about the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Dangerous criminals. Violent outlaws. Threats to society. But what if that story was designed to distract you from the truth? What if the real criminals were the ones telling the story? Sarah's blood ran cold. This wasn't from their leak. This was something else. The video continued. "The documents you're seeing tonight are real. But they're incomplete. They show you what the Hells Angels discovered. They don't show you who's really behind it. They don't show you how deep this goes. They don't show you the end game." Images flashed across the screen. Government buildings. Military installations. Corporate headquarters. Faces Sarah didn't recognize. The organization conducting this research calls itself Chimera Protocol. They've operated in the shadows for decades. They don't just infiltrate governments. They create them. They don't just study human aggression. They deploy it. They don't just collect DNA. They redesign it. Sarah grabbed Reaper's arm. "Who the hell made this video?" "I don't know. That's not from us." The video showed more images. Scientists in labs. Soldiers in training. Children in classrooms. Phase 1 was data collection. Using criminal organizations, military units, and isolated populations to gather genetic samples. Phase 2 was analysis. Understanding what makes humans capable of extreme violence, absolute loyalty, and fearless aggression. Phase 3 was synthesis. Creating genetic modifications that replicate these traits artificially. The screen went black. The distorted voice continued over silence. "We are now in Phase 4. Deployment. The genetic modifications have been perfected. The behavioral conditioning protocols have been tested. The control mechanisms have been installed. And the first generation of modified subjects is already operational. They're in police departments across 30 countries. They're in military units on every continent. They're in private security firms protecting the world's most powerful people. And they don't know they've been modified. They think they're natural. They think they chose this path." Sarah felt like she was falling. This can't be real. "Phase 5 begins in 72 hours, the voice said. "Global deployment. Mass modification. The end of human choice and the beginning of controlled evolution. Unless someone stops it. The video ended with coordinates. A location in northern Canada. And a single line of text. Come if you dare to see the truth. Come if you're ready to fight. Come if you want to save what's left of humanity. The video immediately went viral. 10 million views in the first hour. It was being translated into dozens of languages. Shared across every platform. Analyzed by experts and amateurs alike. At 3:47 a.m., Sarah's phone rang. A blocked number. She answered. Hello. Detective Rodriguez. The voice was familiar. Dr. Heinrich Kessler. I see you've been busy tonight. How did you get this number? We have all your numbers. We've always had them. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling to warn you. That video you just watched? It's not from us. It's from someone else. Someone who knows too much. And they've just painted a target on your back. What are you talking about? The Chimera Protocol is real. But it's not what you think. It's not what that video claims. And the people who made that video are far more dangerous than anything we've ever created. They're trying to start a war, using you as the catalyst. And if you follow those coordinates, you'll be walking into a trap that will make everything you've experienced so far seem like a pleasant dream. Why should I believe anything you say? Because we kept you alive, detective. We've had hundreds of opportunities to eliminate you. We chose not to. Because you're useful. Because your investigation serves a purpose. Because controlled exposure is better than chaotic revelation. But the people who made that video don't care about control. They want chaos. And they're using you to create it. Who are they? We don't know. That's the terrifying part. Someone has been operating parallel to our operations for years. Gathering their own data. Building their own networks. Preparing their own endgame. And they've just revealed themselves. Which means they're ready to move. Sarah's mind raced. You're trying to manipulate me. Make me doubt everything. Classic intelligence operation. I'm trying to save your life. And possibly prevent a catastrophe that will kill millions. Those coordinates lead to a facility in northern Canada. We've been monitoring it for 3 years. We don't control it. We don't know who operates it. But we know it's dangerous. And if you go there, you'll be giving them exactly what they want. What do they want? You. And everyone you've gathered. All the Hell's Angels members who've been helping you. All the evidence you've compiled. All the connections you've made. They want to eliminate everyone who knows the truth about Chimera Protocol. And then they want to blame it on us. Frame us as the villains. While they continue their own version of the project without interference. Sarah looked at Reaper. At Petra. At Dutch. At all the people who'd risked everything to expose this conspiracy. We're going anyway, she said. To those coordinates. Because we don't believe anything you say. And because it's the only lead we have. Dr. Kessler sighed. Then at least go prepared. Assume everything is hostile. Trust no one you meet there. And remember, the real enemy isn't always the one you can see. He hung up. They chartered 3 planes. Small aircraft that could land on rough terrain. 52 people total. Hell's Angels members from chapters around the world. Plus Sarah. Plus Amy Chen, who'd insisted on coming to finish what her brother started. The coordinates pointed to a location 200 miles north of Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. Deep in the Canadian wilderness. A place so remote that satellite imagery showed nothing but forests and lakes. They flew out at dawn. 3 planes crossing the border into Canada, then heading north into increasingly desolate terrain. Sarah sat next to Reaper in the lead plane. Neither of them had slept. The adrenaline and fear were keeping them wired. You believe Kessler? Reaper asked. About this being a trap? I believe he wants us to think it's a trap. Whether it actually is, we'll find out. Not exactly reassuring. Nothing about this situation is reassuring. They flew over endless forests. Over lakes that looked like mirrors reflecting gray sky. Over terrain that looked untouched by human presence. At 11:23 a.m., the pilot spoke over the intercom. "We're approaching the coordinates. And we've got something on visual." Sarah leaned forward, looking out the cockpit window. In the distance, a clearing in the forest. And in that clearing, structures. Buildings. A compound. But not a research facility. Not a military installation. Nothing like what she'd expected. It looked like a town. A small town with buildings arranged around a central square. Houses. Stores. What looked like a school. All in the middle of absolute wilderness. "What the hell?" Reaper muttered. The pilot circled the compound. No movement below. No vehicles. No people. Just empty buildings sitting in artificial silence. They landed on a makeshift runway at the edge of the clearing. The other two planes followed. 52 people emerged into the cold Canadian air, armed with weapons, cameras, recording equipment. Sarah led the way into the compound. The buildings were modern. Well-maintained. Like they'd been occupied recently but were suddenly abandoned. The first building they entered was a school. Desks arranged in neat rows. Chalkboards covered in equations. Children's artwork on the walls. But no children. No teachers. No people. The second building was a medical facility. Examination rooms. Surgical equipment. Rows of filed cabinets containing medical records. Sarah pulled out a file at random. Patient number 1847. Age 7. Gender male. Genetic profile: enhanced aggression markers, improved stress response, elevated pain threshold. Behavioral conditioning: 94% success rate. Deployment readiness: approved. She opened another file. Patient number 2103. Age 9. Gender female. Similar genetic profile. Similar conditioning results. Deployment status: transferred to Phase 5 facility. "They were raising children here," Amichan said, her voice shaking. "Genetically modified children. Training them. Conditioning them. Then sending them out into the world." Dutch found a computer terminal still running. He pulled up files. Hundreds of patient records. All children. All with enhanced genetic profiles. All successfully conditioned. "This isn't a research facility," he said. "It's a factory." They were mass-producing modified humans. Starting with children because they're easier to control, easier to shape, easier to deploy without suspicion. Sarah felt sick. Where are they now? Where did all these children go? Petra found a manifest. A shipping log. Deployment locations across 43 countries. Some went to military training academies. Some to elite boarding schools. Some to foster care systems. Some to adoption agencies. They've been placed into society. Integrated into normal life. Waiting for activation. Activation. Reaper looked at her. "What the hell does that mean?" "It means they can be triggered," Sarah said, the horrible truth dawning on her. "These children have been conditioned. Programmed. And somewhere, someone has the activation codes. The ability to turn them into whatever they were designed to be. Soldiers. Assassins. Terrorists. Anything." A voice echoed through the empty compound, coming from speakers mounted on buildings. The same distorted voice from the video. "Welcome, Detective Rodriguez. Welcome, Reaper. Welcome to Genesis, the birthplace of the new humanity." They all spun around, weapons raised, looking for the source. "Don't bother searching. I'm not here physically. I'm everywhere and nowhere. In systems you don't understand. In networks you can't access. I've been watching you since the beginning. guiding you, leading you here. Show yourself. Sarah shouted. I already have. Everything you've discovered, every file you've found, every clue you've followed. I gave them to you. Marcus Chin thought he was investigating us. He was working for us. Gathering evidence we wanted gathered. Creating trails we wanted created. You've all been my puppets, dancing to a song you don't even hear. Reaper's jaw clenched. What do you want? I want you to understand what you've unleashed. Your leak. Your digital wildfire. Your desperate attempt to expose the truth. It accomplished exactly what I needed. You've created global panic. Destroyed trust in institutions. Made people question everything. And in that chaos, in that fear, people are ready for a solution. Ready for someone to restore order. To protect them. To save them. You wanted us to expose Chimera Protocol, Sarah said, understanding flooding through her. You wanted the public to know about genetic modification. About the conspiracy. Because it makes your solution seem necessary. Precisely. The children you see in these files? They're already deployed. In schools. In neighborhoods. In families. Living normal lives. Until tomorrow. When I activate them. When they start showing their capabilities. Enhanced strength. Fearless aggression. Perfect loyalty. And people will be terrified. You're going to use them to create a crisis. I'm going to use them to create a new world order. Governments will collapse. Military forces will fail. Police departments will be overwhelmed. And in the chaos, people will beg for a solution. They'll beg for a force strong enough to restore order. Strong enough to protect them. Strong enough to control the chaos. The modified soldiers, Amy whispered. The Phase 5 deployment. Exactly. I'll offer governments a solution. Private security forces. Genetically enhanced. Perfectly loyal. Guaranteed to restore order. And desperate governments will accept. Will pay any price. Will grant any authority. And suddenly, I'll control security forces in every major nation on Earth. Police. Military. Corporate security. All enhanced. All loyal only to me. Sarah's mind raced. You're trying to take over the world. Using a problem you created to offer a solution you control. I'm trying to save humanity from itself. You've seen what natural humans are capable of. War. Genocide. Environmental destruction. Endless cycles of violence and suffering. Enhanced humans don't have those problems. They're optimized. Efficient. Controlled. Their evolution accelerated. Humanity 2.0. They're slaves, Reaper spat. You've destroyed their free will. I've given them purpose. Direction. Meaning. They don't suffer existential dread. They don't question their place in the world. They simply do what they were designed to do. And they're happy. Happier than any natural human could ever be. Sarah raised her weapon, even though she had no target. We'll stop you. We'll expose what you're really doing. You'll do nothing. Because in 3 minutes, this entire compound is going to explode. You'll all die here. The evidence will be destroyed. And the world will remember you as conspiracy theorists who died chasing shadows. While I continue building the future. The voice cut out. Silence filled the compound. Then, a timer appeared on every screen. Every computer. Every device. Run! Sarah screamed. They ran. 52 people sprinting toward the planes, stumbling over uneven ground, hearts hammering with pure terror. Sarah grabbed Amy's hand, pulling her along. Reaper was shouting orders, organizing the retreat, making sure no one got left behind. They reached the planes. Pilots were already starting engines, propellers spinning to life. The first group piled into the lead plane. 14 people cramming into a space meant for 8. Sarah threw Amy through the door, then climbed in herself. The second plane loaded. 18 people. Too many. But there was no choice. The third plane, Dutch was running toward it with the last group when his leg exploded. Not metaphorically. His leg literally exploded. Blood and bone fragments spraying across the ground. He fell, screaming. The people with him stopped, torn between helping and saving themselves. "Leave me," Dutch shouted. "Go." But Petra was already running back, grabbing him under the arms, dragging him toward the plane with strength that shouldn't have been possible. Sarah watched from her plane as Petra threw Dutch through the door, then dove in herself. The plane started moving immediately, taxiing toward the runway. All 3 planes accelerating, racing against the countdown. Sarah's plane lifted off first, banking hard to gain altitude quickly. She looked out the window, watching the compound shrink below them. The second plane lifted off, climbing steeply. The third plane was still on the ground, still accelerating. Not going to make it. The compound exploded. Not a single blast, but a cascading series of detonations. Every building erupting simultaneously. Massive fireballs rising into the sky. The shockwave hit the third plane just as its wheels left the ground. The aircraft tilted violently, almost flipping. But the pilot fought it, wrestling the controls, somehow keeping it airborne. All 3 planes climbed through smoke and debris, through a sky suddenly filled with ash and burning fragments. Sarah's heart didn't stop racing until they were 10 miles away. Until the compound was just a black scar on the landscape below. Dutch was unconscious in the third plane. Petra was using a belt as a tourniquet, trying to stop the bleeding. They needed a hospital. Immediately. "Head to Yellowknife," Sarah told the pilot over the radio. "Get Dutch to a medical facility. We'll regroup once he's stable." 4 hours later, they were in a hospital waiting room in Yellowknife. Dutch was in surgery. The prognosis wasn't good. He'd lost too much blood, suffered too much damage. Sarah sat with her head in her hands. They'd escaped with their lives, but they'd accomplished nothing. The evidence was destroyed. The compound was gone. And the mastermind behind everything was still out there, still planning Phase 5. Reaper sat down next to her. "Dutch is going to lose the leg. Maybe more. The doctor said if Petra hadn't gotten him on that plane, he'd be dead. He might still die." "Yeah." They sat in silence for a moment. "What hit him?" Sarah asked. "We didn't hear gunfire. We didn't see anyone. Remote detonation. Some kind of explosive device planted in the ground. Probably set to go off if we tried to leave. So they wanted some of us to escape. Wanted us to survive. To spread the story. To tell people what we saw. To create more panic before Phase 5. Sarah looked at Reaper. "We played right into their hands. Everything we've done has been part of their plan. So what do we do? Give up?" "I don't know." Amy Chen approached. She'd been quiet since the explosion. Traumatized. But now there was something different in her eyes. Determination. "I've been thinking about what Marcus found," she said. "About the financial networks. The synchronized transactions. I think I know what they mean." Sarah looked up. "What?" Marcus was following money. But money isn't the point. It's communication. The transactions are messages. The amounts, the timing, the routing, it's all code. A global communication network hidden in plain sight. Untraceable because it looks like normal financial activity. Okay. But how does that help us? Because if we can crack the code, we can read their communications. We can find out when Phase 5 is happening. Where? Well, we can anticipate their moves instead of reacting to them. Reaper leaned forward. "Can you crack it?" "Maybe. If we had access to the full financial network. All the transactions. Complete data. Marcus only had fragments. How do we get complete data?" Amy smiled grimly. We rob a bank. Or more specifically, we break into the Federal Reserve's database. They track every major transaction in the U.S. financial system. If the Chimera Protocol is moving money through American banks, and Marcus's records show they are, then the Fed has the complete record. Sarah laughed. It came out half hysterical. You want to hack the Federal Reserve. I want to save the world. Hacking the Fed is just a step along the way. They didn't have time for careful planning. Phase 5 was coming. The voice had said 72 hours. They'd already lost 12. Amy needed physical access to a Federal Reserve terminal. The security protocols were too sophisticated to hack remotely. She needed to be inside the building, connected directly to their network, which meant they needed to break into the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, one of the most secure buildings in the United States. Sarah called in every favor she had. Reached out to dirty cops who owed her. To criminals she'd let slide in exchange for information. To former partners who'd gone to the other side. By midnight, they had a team. 12 people. Not all Hell's Angels. Some were professional thieves. Some were hackers. Some were just desperate people who believed the story and wanted to help. The plan was insane. But insanity seemed to be their only option. 3:17 a.m. The team assembled outside the Federal Reserve Building. Massive. Imposing. Surrounded by security cameras, armed guards, blast-resistant walls. They used the maintenance entrance. Sarah's contact, a security guard named Ramon who'd lost his daughter to a mysterious accident 3 months ago and blamed shadowy government conspiracies, let them in. You've got 20 minutes, Ramon said. That's how long before the overnight supervisor does his rounds. After that, you're on your own. Amy set up her laptop in the server room. Started running connection protocols. The Federal Reserve's internal network was encrypted, air-gapped, protected by multiple layers of security. But Amy had been preparing for this. She'd studied Marcus's notes. Understood how Chimera Protocol moved money. Knew what patterns to look for. 10 minutes in, she was inside. Accessing transaction records. Downloading terabytes of data. How long? Sarah asked, watching the door nervously. At least 30 minutes. Maybe more. The data is massive. We don't have 30 minutes. Then we're going to get caught. Sarah pulled out her phone. Called Reaper. We need a distraction. Something big. Something that pulls security away from this building. On it. 5 minutes later, alarms started blaring across the city. A fire at the Transamerica Pyramid. Reports of a gas leak at Union Square. A major accident on the Bay Bridge. All fake. All orchestrated by Hell's Angels members creating chaos across San Francisco. Police and security forces responded. Resources stretched thin. The Federal Reserve security staff got calls about potential threats elsewhere. Amy kept downloading. 15 minutes. 20. 25. Sarah heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Heavy boots. Multiple people. Security's coming. Almost done. 30 more seconds. The footsteps got closer. Sarah positioned herself by the door, hand on her weapon. 20 seconds. The door handle started to turn. 10 seconds. The door opened. A security guard stepped through. Amy unplugged the laptop. Got it. Sarah hit the guard with the butt of her gun. He went down hard. She grabbed Amy, and they ran. Through corridors. Down staircases. Out the maintenance exit where Ramon was waiting with a van. They piled in. The van accelerated. Behind them, alarms were screaming. Guards were swarming. But they were already 3 blocks away. They made it to the safe house in Oakland. Amy immediately set up her equipment, starting to analyze the data. Sarah collapsed on a couch. Reaper sat next to her. This is getting crazier by the minute, he said. I know. Do you think Amy can actually crack their code? I don't know. But it's the only lead we have. They waited, watching Amy work, watching her run algorithms and analyze patterns and stare at screens full of numbers. At 7:42 a.m., she leaned back in her chair. "Oh my God." Sarah jumped up. "What? Did you find something?" "I found everything. The code isn't complex. It's elegant. Beautiful even. They're using transaction amounts as a cipher. Every deposit corresponds to a letter. Every withdrawal to a number. The routing paths spell out locations. The timing indicates when operations are happening. Can you decode their messages?" "I already have. 3 months of communications. Complete operational plans. Phase 5 deployment schedules. Target locations. Activation protocols." Amy's hands were shaking. "It's happening tomorrow. Phase 5. Simultaneously across 17 major cities. The modified subjects are going to be activated. All at once. And then. God, then." "What?" Amy turned her laptop towards Sarah. On the screen, a decoded message. Phase 5 deployment. T-24 hours activation targets. 1,847 subjects across 17 cities. Primary targets. Government buildings, police stations, military installations. Secondary targets. Financial centers, media headquarters, transportation hubs. Objective. Simultaneous coordinated strikes to maximize chaos and collapse institutional authority. Estimated casualties. 50,000 plus in first 48 hours. Estimated governmental response time. 7 to 14 days. Solution deployment. Enhanced security forces offered to governments as emergency measure. Expected acceptance rate. 94% global control achieved. 180 days from Phase 5 initiation. Sarah read it twice. Then a third time. The scope of what was planned made her physically ill. "They're going to kill 50,000 people," she whispered. "Just to create enough fear that governments will hand over security to private forces. Forces they control." "It's a coup," Reaper said. "A global coup. Using terrorism as the catalyst. We have to stop it. We have 24 hours to prevent Phase 5. Amy pulled up another file. "There's more. The activation codes. The protocols used to trigger the modified subjects. They're all controlled from a central location. A facility coordinates the activation signal." "Where?" Amy highlighted a location on a map. "Montana. In the mountains near Glacier National Park. The facility is called Apex. It's the command center for the entire operation." Sarah looked at the coordinates, at the remote location, at the security details in the files. "We're going to assault a heavily fortified military facility with 12 people and whatever weapons we can carry," she said. "In 24 hours. To stop the activation of almost 2,000 enhanced subjects programmed to kill." "Pretty much," Reaper said. "This is suicide." "Probably." Sarah stood up. "Get everyone ready. We leave in 3 hours." They drove through the night. A convoy of vehicles racing north through California, into Oregon, into Washington, finally crossing into Montana as dawn broke over the Rocky Mountains. They'd gathered more people along the way. Hell's Angels from West Coast chapters. Militia members who'd seen the leaked documents and believed. Former military who were horrified by what genetic modification might mean. Even a few journalists who wanted to document whatever happened. 47 people total. Against a facility designed to withstand military assault. The plan was simple because it had to be. No time for complexity. No resources for sophistication. Just brute force and desperate hope. They'd strike at 6 p.m. Sunset. When visibility decreased but wasn't completely gone. When shift changes might create vulnerability. When their thermal signatures would be harder to track. Sarah spent the drive reviewing Amy's decoded files. Learning everything she could about Apex. The layout. The security systems. The personnel. The facility was built into a mountain. 3 levels. The top level contained administration and housing. The middle level contained research labs and the main computer systems. The bottom level, carved deep into bedrock, contained the command center. The place where activation signals would be transmitted. That was their target. The command center. Destroy it, and Phase 5 couldn't happen. The modified subjects would remain dormant. The coup would be prevented. At least, that was the theory. At 3 p.m., they parked 5 miles from Apex. Hiked through forest carrying weapons, explosives, and Amy's hacking equipment. At 5:30 p.m., they reached the perimeter. Electric fence. Motion sensors. Cameras every 30 feet. Guard towers at each corner. Sarah looked at Reaper. Last chance to walk away. He smiled. And miss all the fun? At exactly 6 p.m., they attacked. The first explosion took out the northwest guard tower. The second hit the main gate. The third detonated against the fence, blowing a hole wide enough to drive through. They poured through the gap, running toward the main building. Weapons firing. Alarms screaming. Spotlights swinging toward them. Guards emerged from the facility. Not regular security. Enhanced subjects. Moving faster than normal humans. Stronger. More coordinated. The firefight was brutal. Sarah saw people fall. Saw Petra take 3 bullets and keep fighting. Saw a biker named Axe get shot in the chest and tear the guard's throat out with his bare hands before collapsing. They reached the main entrance. Amy rigged the door with C4. The explosion blew it open. They rushed inside. The building was a maze. Corridors branching in every direction. Each one defended. Each one requiring blood to pass through. Sarah led a team toward the stairwell. Downward. Toward the command center. Bullets ricocheting off walls. People screaming. The smell of gunpowder and blood thick in the air. Second level. Fighting room by room. Losing people with every step. Sarah saw Dutch, hobbling on crutches but still fighting, take a bullet to the head. Saw him drop instantly. First level. Command center ahead. Final defense. 20 guards between them and the target. They charged. It wasn't tactical. It wasn't smart. It was desperation in physical form. Sarah ran through the gunfire. Felt bullets graze her. Felt blood running down her arm. Didn't stop. Couldn't stop. She reached the command center door. Amy was right behind her. They planted the final explosive. Set the timer. 5 seconds. The explosion blew the door off its hinges. They staggered through smoke and dust into a massive room filled with computer equipment. Screens covering the walls. Keyboards and terminals everywhere. And in the center, a man in a white suit. Perfectly calm. Watching them with amused interest. "Detective Rodriguez," he said. "Impressive. I didn't think you'd make it this far." Sarah raised her gun. "You're shutting down Phase 5. Now." "Am I?" The man smiled. "Look at the screens." Sarah looked. Each screen showed a different city. New York. Los Angeles. London. Tokyo. Berlin. Sydney. 17 cities. And in each one, modified subjects moving into position. "You're too late," the man said. "The activation signal already transmitted. 47 minutes ago. Phase 5 is already in progress. You've wasted your assault on an empty gesture." Amy was typing furiously at a terminal. "He's lying. The signal hasn't been sent. But it's queued. Set to transmit automatically in 7 minutes if he doesn't enter an abort code." The man's smile widened. "True. But I'm not going to enter that code. You can't make me. You can torture me, but by the time I break, the timer will have expired. You can kill me, but the code dies with me. Either way, Phase 5 happens." Sarah's mind raced. 7 minutes. Not enough time to decrypt the code. Not enough time to stop the transmission manually. They'd failed. Unless... "Amy," she said. Can you trace where the signal goes? The transmission path. Amy's fingers flew across the keyboard. Yes. It routes through 6 relay stations before reaching the subject implants. Why? Can we overload one of the relays? Blow out the system before the signal reaches the subjects. Maybe. If we sent enough power through the network. Enough to fry the relay stations. But we'd need to feedback loop the system. Use the facility's own power grid against itself. The man in the white suit laughed. Clever. But impossible. The relays are hardened against power surges. You'd need 1,000,000 volts minimum to damage them. This facility doesn't generate that kind of power. Amy looked at Sarah. But the mountain does. There's a geothermal generator built into the bedrock, tapping into volcanic activity. It produces enough power for the entire facility plus a surplus that's stored in capacitors. Can you redirect it? All of it. Into the relay system. If I do, the feedback will destroy this entire facility. We'll have minutes to evacuate. Maybe seconds. Do it. The man's smile faded. You'll kill everyone in this building, including yourselves. Better than letting Phase 5 happen. Amy started typing. Rerouting systems. Bypassing safety protocols. Building a digital pathway that would turn the facility's power supply into a weapon. The man moved. Fast. Inhumanly fast. He was enhanced too. He grabbed Amy, pulled her away from the keyboard. Sarah fired. The bullet hit him in the chest. He staggered but didn't fall. Enhanced durability. She fired again. And again. Emptying her clip into him. He fell backward. Released Amy. But was already trying to get up. Reaper appeared in the doorway. He'd been clearing the outer areas. Saw the situation instantly. Raised a shotgun and fired. Once. Twice. The enhanced man's head exploded. Amy dove back to the keyboard. Almost done. 30 seconds until redirect is complete. The building shuddered. Emergency alarms started screaming. The lights flickered.